Okay, picture this. Some random caveman, millions of years ago, is having the worst day of his entire life. He's starving. And I don't mean I skipped lunch hungry. I mean I will eat anything that is not actively running away from me, starving. His ribs are showing through his skin. His stomach has been screaming at him for 2 days straight. That deep, growling ache that takes over your whole body. And the hunting? A total disaster. The animals were too fast. The berries he knew about were already stripped bare by something quicker than him. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. So now he's just wandering, slow, weak, desperate. His eyes are scanning the ground for literally anything. A bug, a root, a scrap, anything he can shove into his mouth to make the pain stop. And then he finds it. A pile of old fruit, just sitting there under a tree. Mushy, soft, going brown in places. And it's giving off this weird smell. Sweet but sharp, kind of sour. The kind of smell that makes your nose scrunch up on instinct. Now, a well-fed human would walk straight past this. This is garbage fruit. This is the stuff you throw in the bin without thinking twice. But our boy? He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He does not have the luxury of being picky. Picky is for people who aren't starving. So he looks down at this sad, rotting, smelly little pile. He shrugs, and he goes, free food. And he has absolutely no idea, not the faintest clue, that this fruit has gone bad in a very, very special way. See, here's what he can't possibly see. While that fruit was sitting out there rotting in the warm sun, something moved into it. Something alive. Something so tiny he could never spot it in a million years. We call them yeast. Little microscopic creatures drifting through the air, and they had landed on this fruit and made themselves at home. And these little guys have exactly one job in life. They find sugar. They gobble up the sugar. And then, as a little thank you to the universe, they pee out a chemical. That chemical is alcohol. Yeah, our starving caveman is about to eat boozy fruit. Nature's very first accidental cocktail, mixed up by a bunch of invisible little organisms, served on the forest floor. And he is walking right into it, completely blind. So he grabs a fistful, shoves it into his mouth. Chew, chew, swallow. It's sour. It's a little gross. But food is food, and right now, food is everything. So he eats more and more. He clears the entire pile, because when you're that hungry, you do not leave a single bite behind. And then he stops, because something is happening, something he has never, ever felt before in his whole life. The trees are kind of swaying, gently, but there's no wind. The ground feels strangely soft underneath him, almost springy, like it's bouncing ever so slightly with each step. His arms feel light. His face feels warm and flushed. And this feeling, this strange, fuzzy, glowing warmth, starts spreading out from his belly into his whole body. And here's the thing. It feels good. Like genuinely, deeply good. For the very first time in his short, brutal, terrifying life, a life that is basically just one long fight to not die, this dude is relaxed. He's not scared. He's not on edge. He's not scanning the tree line for predators. He's just sitting there, under a tree, feeling absolutely fantastic. He might even laugh out loud. A real, genuine laugh. Probably the first one he's had in weeks. Now, here is the part that is going to mess with your head. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't some random freak accident that happened to one weird, unlucky caveman. Your body, yes, your body, the one you're sitting in right now, was basically built to love this. You were, in a very real sense, designed for this exact moment, engineered for it across an unimaginable stretch of time. And to understand why, we have to talk about a monkey. I'm dead serious. Scientists actually have a real, semi-official nickname for this whole idea. They call it the drunken monkey theory. That's genuinely what it's called. The drunken monkey. Here's how it works. Go back millions of years, long, long before there were any humans at all. Back when our distant ancestors were basically apes living up in the trees, swinging around the forest all day, looking for food. And their main food? Fruit. Sweet, ripe, juicy fruit. But here's the problem. Ripe fruit was hard to find. Genuinely hard. You'd climb up a massive tree, search every single branch, and maybe find one or two good pieces. And you weren't the only one looking. Every hungry animal in that forest wanted the exact same fruit you did. The competition was savage. But here's where it gets clever. When fruit gets really, really ripe and starts to ferment, when that yeast moves in and starts producing alcohol, it gives off a smell, a strong one. And that smell travels. It drifts out through the forest, carried on the air for a long, long way, way further than your eyes could ever see. So now imagine two apes. Ape number one catches a whiff of that boozy, fermented scent on the breeze, and his brain lights up. Food! Over there! Go! And he follows his nose straight to a feast nobody else even knew was there. Ape number two smells the exact same thing and goes, ugh, gross, that's rotten, hard pass. And he turns and walks the other way. So ask yourself, which ape eats more? Ape number one. Which ape survives the lean, hungry seasons when food is almost impossible to find? Ape number one. And which ape lives long enough and stays healthy enough to have a whole bunch of baby apes? Ape number one. Every single time, without fail. So generation after generation after generation, the apes who were drawn to that alcohol smell, the ones whose brains screamed yum instead of yuck, those are the ones who survived. Those are the ones who thrived. Those are the ones who passed their genes down the line. And the apes who hated it, the ones who turned up their noses and walked away from all that easy food, they slowly, quietly lost the game. They got out-competed. They starved a little more often. And bit by bit, over countless generations, they faded out of the picture. So liking a little buzz, feeling pulled toward that smell, that taste, that warm, fuzzy glow, that is not some shameful modern flaw. It's not a weakness that says something bad about you. It is an inheritance, an ancient survival trait, passed down to you across literally millions of years, from your okay, I would genuinely be saying great for the rest of this video, from your unbelievably distant ancestors who survived precisely because they loved this stuff. You, my friend, are the proud descendant of the most successful party animals in the entire history of life on Earth. Wear it with pride. But okay, let's get back to our caveman, because his amazing magical night, it is about to come crashing down. Hard. The sun comes up, and our boy wakes up feeling like he got stepped on by a woolly mammoth. Twice. His head is absolutely pounding. Boom, boom, boom. In time with his own heartbeat, each thud sending a fresh wave of pain through his skull. His mouth feels like he's been chewing on a fistful of dry sand. His stomach is rolling and flipping, and the sunlight feels like it is personally, deliberately attacking his eyeballs. He groans. He can barely lift his own head. So congratulations to this poor, miserable guy. He has just become the very first human being in all of history to experience a hangover. And here's what makes it so much worse for him than it ever is for you and me. When you get a hangover, you know exactly what's going on. You know you drank too much last night. You know it's going to pass by the afternoon. You drink some water, you eat something greasy, you complain to your friends a bit, and you get on with your life. It's annoying, but it's familiar. But this caveman? He has absolutely no idea what alcohol even is. None. He has no concept of it. He doesn't know what happened to him or why. All he knows is that one day he felt incredible. The world was soft and warm and wonderful. And then the very next morning, he feels like he is dying a slow, painful death. And from where he's standing, this is genuinely terrifying and completely, utterly impossible to explain. So his brain does the one thing every single human brain does when something happens that it cannot explain. It makes up a story.
And the story he lands on is the only one that makes any sense to him. The fruit was magic. A spirit climbed inside his body. He was blessed, lifted up to feel like a god. And then he was cursed, struck down as punishment. Something powerful, something invisible, something far bigger than him reached right into his body, carried his spirit up to the heavens, and then slammed him back down to the earth to teach him a lesson. And that one little misunderstanding, dreamed up by one confused, hungover, frightened caveman, that goes on to change the entire course of human history. Because think about it for a second. If booze feels like magic, if it can lift your very spirit out of your body and make you feel like a god walking the earth and then strike you down the next morning like a punishment from above, then humans are never going to treat this stuff like it's just food. They're going to treat it like power, like something sacred, something holy, something dangerous and divine to be feared and respected. And that is exactly what they did for thousands and thousands of years. We're getting to that, don't worry. But first, something even crazier happens. Something so wild, so unexpected that it might literally be the reason you have a roof over your head right now. Stay with me. For almost the entire history of our species, people did not have homes. They wandered, constantly. Small groups of humans, always on the move, hunting animals and gathering plants and roots and berries, never settling down anywhere for long. That was simply the deal for tens of thousands of years. Pack up, move on, follow the food, repeat, forever. And then, fairly suddenly, in the grand scheme of things, humans just stopped. They settled down. They built the first villages. They started to farm, clearing land, planting grain, tending fields, staying put in one single place all year round. Now, this is genuinely one of the biggest turning points in the entire human story. I cannot stress this enough. Everything you know, every city, every town, every village, your entire neighborhood, all of it traces directly back to this one massive shift when we stopped wandering and started staying put. And for the longest time, basically everybody assumed they knew exactly why it happened. Bread. It's the obvious answer, right? Humans figured out they could grow grain, grind it up into flour, and bake it into bread. Reliable, storable food. So naturally, they settled down to farm that grain, and from there, civilization was born. Bread built the world. Easy. Case closed. Except, some scientists took a long, hard look at the evidence, scratched their heads, and went, "Hold on a minute. We're not actually sure it was bread at all." So, if it wasn't bread, then what was it? Beer. And no, I am not joking, not even a little bit. There is a serious, genuine theory, argued by actual archaeologists with actual evidence, that humans didn't settle down and invent farming to make bread. They did it to make beer. Here's how the idea goes. Once people discovered that you could take grain, let it ferment, and turn it into a drink that delivered that incredible, magical, warm, and buzzy feeling, they wanted more of it. Naturally. And not just a little more. A lot more. But making that drink reliably again and again meant you needed a steady, dependable supply of grain. And getting a steady supply of grain meant you had to stop wandering and stay in one place to grow it. And staying in one place to grow it meant building a village, settling down, inventing farming, the whole thing. In other words, this theory says we may have given up our entire ancient way of life. We may have invented agriculture, built the first permanent settlements, and laid the literal foundation of all human civilization. Not because we were desperate for food,
but because we really, really wanted to keep the party going. Just sit with that for a moment. Cities, roads, farms, skyscrapers, your own hometown. Maybe, just maybe, The whole grand project of human civilization got kicked off because a bunch of ancient humans were absolutely determined not to run out of booze. Your entire town might exist today because of an ancient craving for a good buzz. Let that sink in. And once humans had figured out how to make this stuff on purpose, reliably, on demand, instead of just stumbling across rotten fruit and hoping for the best, well, everything changed all over again. Because the moment you can reliably produce something that absolutely everybody wants, that something becomes valuable. Extremely, seriously valuable. That sad little pile of garbage fruit our caveman scarfed down, its descendants, beer, wine, all the fermented drinks humans learned to brew, became some of the most valuable things on the entire planet. And I mean that completely literally. In some ancient civilizations, beer wasn't just something nice you drank at the end of a long day. Beer was money, actual currency. Picture the workers who built some of the great monuments of the ancient world, hauling enormous stone blocks, working under a punishing sun, day after back-breaking day. How do you think a lot of them got paid for that brutal labor? In beer. Daily rations of it, handed out as a core part of their wages. Beer was so valuable, so central to everyday life and survival, that you could literally hand it over the way we hand over cash today. Just imagine that for a second. Imagine your boss strolling up to your desk on payday and, instead of money, simply handing you a nice cold drink. Here you go. That's your wages for the week. See you tomorrow. For a huge number of ancient workers, that was just a completely normal, unremarkable Tuesday. And it wasn't only about money either. Remember how our hungover caveman decided this stuff was magic? A gift and a curse straight from the spirit world? Humans never really let go of that idea. Not for thousands and thousands of years. All across the world, in cultures that were separated by entire oceans, that had never once met each other or shared a single word, humans came to the very same conclusion, completely independently. This drink is sacred. It connects us to the gods. It is a bridge to the spirit world. They poured it out onto the ground as holy offerings. They used it in their most important and sacred ceremonies. Their priests drank it. Their gods were said to crave it and love it. And it wove itself into every single big moment of human life. A wedding? There's a drink in everyone's hand. A funeral? There's a drink to honor the dead. Festivals, harvest celebrations, the changing of the seasons, the crowning of a brand new king? Humans showed up every single time, without fail, with a cup raised high. That rotten, mushy, just throw it out fruit had completed one of the most unbelievable glow-ups in all of history. It had gone from garbage on the forest floor all the way to a literal, treasured gift from the heavens above. But, and you knew there'd be a but, here's the catch with handing humans something this fun. We tend to massively overdo it. We always have. It seems to be hardwired right into us. Give a human being a good thing, and a solid chunk of humans will immediately go and have way, way, way too much of it. And ancient people, it turns out, were no different from us at all. Wherever there was booze, there were people getting absolutely catastrophically wrecked on it, passing out in the street, starting fights, causing chaos, making truly terrible decisions they'd regret in the morning. Honestly, some things about being human never, ever change. And the moment people started seriously overdoing it, well, somebody had to step in and start making some rules. And this is honestly one of my favorite parts of the whole story. Some of the very oldest written laws in all of human history, actual rules carved painstakingly into stone, sitting right there among the first laws our species ever bothered to write down at all, were about drinking. Just think about what that tells you about us. Out of absolutely everything those early societies could have chosen to make their very first written rules about, alcohol made the list immediately, right near the top. There were rules about how much a person was allowed to drink, rules about exactly who was allowed to drink and who definitely wasn't. There were even rules cracking down hard on dishonest sellers who watered down their beer to cheat their customers out of a fair deal. Because apparently, scamming people on their booze is also a grand human tradition as old as time itself. And the punishments for breaking these rules? Let's just say the ancient world really, truly did not mess around. You very much did not want to get caught cheating people on their beer. The consequences could be brutal. So let's just take one big step back and look at the absolutely insane journey we've been on here. In the span of just a few thousand years, this one single thing, alcohol, went from a complete and total accident, a starving caveman desperately eating a pile of fruit he honestly should have thrown away, to a strange and powerful feeling that people were utterly convinced was magic, to quite possibly the entire reason we built villages, invented farming, and settled down in the first place. To actual spendable money that you could use to pay an entire workforce. To a sacred, holy gift handed down from the gods themselves. All the way to the subject of some of the very first written laws our species ever created. Money, religion, law, civilization itself. All of it, tangled up, completely intertwined, with this one humble, rotten little fruit. And it all started, every last bit of it, the whole towering pile of human history, because one hungry, exhausted, desperate caveman looked down at a pile of garbage, gave a little shrug, and decided to eat it anyway.